So how do businesses actually transform? What do they need to do? So to hear what businesses need to do, I'd like to welcome Stephen Miles, Chief Technology Officer for APJ CA Technologies.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Excellent. Well, that was a fantastic morning, wasn't it? We had virtual Ken presenting. I say that because he wasn't well earlier this morning, and whatever came up on stage was clearly a dramatic improvement. Feeling a lot better, obviously. So in this ever virtual world, we had a virtual Ken. That was an exciting presentation. Kind of got us focused on the things that really matter and the things which really are driving CA's business, which is very important. Then we had Mayanne. Wow, that'll woke us up, didn't it? Really good to get a perspective of how the region, is transforming or isn't, as the case may be, and the speed and pace of change. Very, very important. And personally, having spent a long time in APJ, I'm very excited by what's happening in this region. I think there's tremendous opportunities. I'm sure you will agree. So many familiar faces here today. Good to welcome back old friends and some new faces. And well, this time last year we talked about the application economy. We talked about why we're super excited about it as a company. The tremendous opportunity that we see ahead for all of us. But 1 year on, as Ken kind of touched on during his presentation, the rate and pace of change is off the charts. It's unparalleled. Disruption isn't just an irritating inconvenience, it's a force of progress. Software is giving each and every company, large, old, new, small, a wonderful opportunity to just start all over again and come at this business afresh, change the dynamic of their business, and really disrupt and compete. So during my time with you this morning, I'm going to share with you about what I see around APJ that companies are really doing, how they are embracing change and transforming their businesses, how they're thinking about themselves now as software companies, not just traditional businesses with IT, and how they're changing into thriving, innovating factories, which is the future of their business. We're going to be looking at the what and the how, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. And finally, I'll take you through a little bit of a journey on what CA is doing with our products and technologies. Not in huge detail. My esteemed peers are here today to take you into more depth around the individual product portfolios, but I'll give you an idea of how it all fits together. Sound good? Yeah. Excellent. Let's just remind ourselves then about the application economy. Ken talked about it. I'm not going to dwell on it too much, but it's important to understand it's not just a case of deciding to put your hand up one day and participate. We'll understand that we need to, but understand that the rules have changed. The rules have changed and the culture has dramatically changed. We have a whole new group of users and customers and people interacting with us as businesses that just simply wish to do business differently. They have an on-demand culture. They have a I need it now, I want it now expectation. And if we're not able to deliver that experience into the hands of our customers, we're all going to be challenged as businesses. Secondly, experience. Well, that's just gone to a whole new level in terms of expectation. Experience not in just how's my IT performing end to end, is it green, orange, or red? That's a very basic view of experience. Experience now is a very subjective thing. It's customers deciding how they feel about your businesses, with you having seemingly limited or next to no control over. They dictate the terms of what customer experience is like, and by the way, they socially amplify that for good or for bad, and so it's inherent upon all of us to rethink experience. And again, not just in the end delivery of a product, but an interaction experience through the whole journey as customers come in and do business with us. If more of our business is moving into an application or applications, if less people are coming into branches and having physical interactions with us, which Ken spoke about, then it stands to reason that we're going to need to focus on that customer journey, that technology customer journey, and thinking about experience from a number of different perspectives. Listen, we don't have control anymore. Control is gone. Can't lock people in. There's no contracts for this stuff anymore. People come and go as they choose. Businesses fighting back against that, but seriously, the game's over. The train's left the station. Delight your customers or lose them. And the other challenge we have is speed is everything. Okay? Now, what I mean by that, I remember talking for years about first mover advantage. It kind of sounded like a sexy phrase. We all like that, but first mover advantage has gone out the window because the digital disruptors, which I'm going to speak about in just a minute, have created unfair market advantages in the way in which they have disrupted and disintermediated businesses. So we need to do this at speed. It's not a question of waiting for everybody else. Let's see what this company does, and then maybe we'll do it in 2 years' time. There may be no market left. And so we need, if we're going to participate, jump in quickly, mobilize and move at speed. Velocity and time to market is literally everything. And if we don't do that, we may not have any customers left. I mean, that's the practical reality of how people see their business. So when we think about the application economy from a disruption perspective, we love to talk about Uber, we love to talk about Airbnb, we love to talk about Netflix as 3 examples. There's many others, but these 3 will do. The market refers to these as unicorns. These are the companies that are cloud native, digital first in everything they do, think and conceive, and have disrupted the industry from a positive perspective and created unparalleled change in the way in which we do business. And on the other side of the fence, we have the traditional companies, the companies that we have looked to and respected for the last 20 years plus. Big retailers like Tesco, Federal Express, the world's largest logistics company, and traditional bellwether financial institutions like JP Morgan Chase. The industry affectionately refers to these companies as horses. At some point they'll sprout wings and they'll develop a horn on the front of the nose. But the point is that they're not rolling over and playing dead. They're fighting back in a big way. And they're fighting back because they understand the future. They understand that they need to make a very positive change and a very quick change. And they're leveraging a number of different disruptive technologies which have emerged over the last couple of years to actually take a jump start, to actually get back and fight back quickly. Now, from my perspective, what's kept me awake at night is thinking about what they really are. Well, number one, DevOps is top of the charts for most organizations right now. DevOps is not about bringing development and operations together. It's not about anything other than just the reality that businesses need to be closer to their customers. That's simply DevOps explained. And everything that underpins and supports that is a challenge that every single business wishing to compete and fight back need to address. Secondly, we need to make our organizations agile, not just in terms of developing software with a new funky architecture, which is important, but thinking about being an agile organization. We need to think about platform as a service. I know, it's been around for a while. Everyone's been talking about PaaS for a couple of years or so. But let me tell you, PaaS is accelerating like I've never seen. More and more companies are moving to platform as a service because it just makes simple, common sense, rips the guts out of the cost of your business, and enables companies to develop and build applications at speed. APIs are not just a funky little way of connecting people together. They're becoming the software architecture for connecting everything in the digital platform. Containerization just simply makes it easy for developers to move at speed and port applications across different environments. Software-defined everything just simply says we're going to have infrastructure as code, and we're going to be able to build, deploy, and deliver deterministic services because that's what the application economy dictates. But guess what? They're all the hows. You know what the what is? The biggest what we need to focus and pay our attention on today is the advent of microservices. This thing is coming like a steam train because it's the only thing which is going to set companies apart in terms of their ability to build applications at speed, reliably, with rich quality, and deliver them into the hands of production and into the hands of their customers. Want to talk about Uber? Want to talk about Airbnb? Want to talk about Netflix? These are the world's leading protagonists of the adoption of microservices technology. Facebook today, deploying 1,200 releases an hour. Netflix in primetime TV occupies 37% of the US internet backbone. Well, that's how much traffic they're generating. Amazon claims to be making a release in terms of a component change to content every 11.6 seconds, and that window is narrowing every day. Intuit, the American tax provider that all Americans go to get their tax business cleared with, has so much agility in their system. They're able to run live experiments, about 150 live experiments with applications and promotions and code in the middle of the peak time of the American tax return season. This is agility. These are the people that are changing the world in which we live in, and these are the companies that we need to emulate in terms of not just surviving, but thinking about thriving in the application economy. And I did mention it earlier, but I want to just stress the point. The security doesn't become an afterthought. It's something that needs to be baked in at the beginning. These companies are thinking about identity and access, and they're thinking about implementing it proactively in their business. So what do leading disruptors do? Let's just dwell on this just for a second. Well, DevOps, they're doing DevOps. They don't think of it as DevOps. They think about bringing businesses closer together with their customers. Real-time relationships, interactive relationships. Continuous integration and continuous delivery. What does that mean in short? It means no more fear of change. The old CIO organizations of old, which locked things down, put things in centralized structures, made processes so archaic that it just prevented anything happening, those good days are gone. We're now thinking about speed, developing, releasing, integrating continuously. APIs are about self-service integration. Turnkey projects integrating systems that take 2 years to 2.5 years, those are gone. We're talking about self-service API infrastructure as part of your new digital services platform. Cloud computing today means instantaneous provisioning, removing one of the biggest headaches in the business and making it simple for companies to focus on what they really care about, which is building quality applications. Everyone's going open source. Instant pluggable code. Why? Because you can assemble things quickly, you can deploy them quickly, you can change them quickly. And there's a whole community of people supporting these applications, helping you to get them fixed and delivered on time. JavaScript and GitHub, well, that's all about interesting new ways to create and connect more developers together. So this thing has some speed and it has some consistency. Containers and Dockers just help us to easily replicate development environments and make them highly portable across the different environments that we wish to work in. Identity and access is going through a whole new rethink. Vic's going to go through this with you in a lot more detail later this afternoon. But if you don't lock down your business as you expose the boundaries of your business to a bigger, brighter world, your business can be taken down in seconds, as Vic will share with you. And finally, microservices will become the optimal architecture for surviving and thriving in the new paradigm. So, what are customers doing as I go around the region? They're thinking about a digital transformation blueprint. It's going to look a little different for each company, granted, but this is an abstract view of essentially what I see happening. First of all, everybody's thinking about participating in a broader ecosystem. The way you do that is through API technologies. So it's not just about connecting, mobile apps into back-end components of your applications, which it does. It's not just about necessarily exposing portal capabilities to developers to help developers speed up applications, which it also is. It's about connecting to a whole ecosystem of partners, a whole ecosystem of digital suppliers, a whole ecosystem of digital content, and making that an extensive, inclusive part of our business moving forward. Secondly, when we need to think about channels, we need to think about, or customer functionality I should say, we need to think about an omni-channel strategy, which doesn't just mean a new channel to the business. Omni-channel strategy means we simply understand that relationship with that customer irrespective of which touch point they come in at. And if they move from a branch to a web app, to later then having a direct interaction with somebody who they may have met up in the street, maybe an agent or something, that there's a consistent understanding of the last interaction, and that we're able to understand that in terms of the way in which we interact with that customer. And as we expand that into sensors and things, obviously that's going to be more and more important from a customer experience, customer journey perspective. And finally, business functionality. Let's not be afraid of change. Let's disrupt the processes that we have in our business. Let's build adaptive environments, and let's create a hive of innovation that's going to drive the frontiers of our business. And And that's why we think about this as more of an innovation factory. Companies thinking about themselves as software-based innovation factories, having an iterative, continuous, agile-centric capability, and able to make determination around priority, but always thinking about scale. And that's really how companies are able to think about applications which are fast, stable, experience is important, trusted, need to be secure, and relevant. There is no point spending 18 months on a waterfall-based project delivering an application that is irrelevant by the time it reaches the customer. The only way you'll do that is to have an iterative development process. So we talked about an application build revolution, and this is something that's really important. The way that every company builds apps today, by and large, is monolithic based. It's a typical three-tier structure: your web tier, your middleware, your database. We call it the three-layer wedding cake. Kind of got us to where we are today. Understood, well-known practices, well-established practices to support this. But you need to know that they're pretty change intolerant. They're very tightly coupled, and they're dependent on the waterfall process, by and large. This is giving way to a microservices world where everything is independent, loosely coupled, very agile-centric in terms of the way in which they get built, and very appropriate for this continuous delivery capability that I'll talk about a bit later, and my colleagues will embellish. That simply says that we need to get away from the old way of building things. This is how these things are built. It's the waterfall model. It simply says that we need to conceive, design, develop, and test in sequence, but the customer value and the delivery into production is all at the end of the process. It takes time. Sometimes we don't find the problems until the end of the cycle, and then we need to go all the way back to the beginning and make a change or make an adjustment. And it kind of takes time, and it's too slow. In a microservices world, we use the agile environment. This simply says that we can have fast, iterative relationships with our customer. Remember, DevOps, business coming together with the customer, right? Having that appropriate agility into the business to just make sure we're developing the right product at the right time, that we're building in the right features with rich quality, and we can change and adapt at any stage in the cycle. That's what's required for microservices. So, a lot of you looking at me thinking, well, I haven't heard of microservices before. What is it? It's simply a system which helps us to now build applications in a way which is totally distributed, totally independent of each other component part. That's what gives us the resilience if we need to make a change to a component part. Easy to be deployed, easy to evolve, easy to be composed, very easy to scale, and very easily replaceable. Very, very important point. We'll come to that in just a second. They tend to be quite small. They tend to be less than 1,000 lines of code or smaller. They're exposed exclusively through REST APIs. They run in their own process. They're completely independent, and they use a decentralized storage mechanism. So let's make it real for you. So if I was going to launch a company tomorrow, and we all get excited about these new companies that come along, maybe I wanted to do the Uber equivalent of the airline business. Maybe I wanted to come up with a new digital air travel app. Well, my choices are to go and build this in a monolithic application. That's when all the key components of what makes this application work, they're all coupled together in one single monolithic piece of code. Great, easy to build, easy to get started, but kind of difficult when you start thinking about that broader ecosystem of value, because guess what? When those different components that need to interact with your code make a piece of logic change or something that's relevant to the application, you can't harness it or embed it within the core monolithic app very easily. You can't test the viability of it because all these things need to be tested in one single monolithic component. And so not only is it slow for the evolution of your own capability, but it slows down your ability to be relevant and keep pace with the other digital content, digital service providers and community that you wish to be relevant with. This is a critical fact. And so, whilst it's understood, it's known, there's a ton of developers out there that can do this, there's an outsourced community that can go build this for you. It has limited agility, no continuous delivery capability, tech stack limitation, you can't use all the new development languages typically around monolithic applications. Huge amount of technical depth which prevents you moving at speed and impacts the ecosystem that you're trying so preciously to do business with. think about it another way, and now we can start thinking about breaking those core components down into smaller, meaningful services of relevant products, which we can now link together through APIs, which can then in turn link together to that broader ecosystem that we wish to do, enhance our business with, and now start thinking about something that's truly powerful. Why? Because it's faster. We can develop at speed. If I want to change one component part because it doesn't work very well or customers don't like it, I can change it. It doesn't impact the rest of the application. If one of my partners who's enhancing one of my services needs something changed because it just improves the overall ability of the expanded ecosystem, I can make that change without impacting any other part of the component code. So I have scale independence, I have resilience, I have stack flexibility, I have composability, I have all the things that enables me to now move at speed, consistency with great quality applications. Now, look, to be fair, I do have some challenges. I get a bit of additional complexity in terms of how I'm going to manage and operate and run this. I'm going to need to think about, rather like Facebook and Uber and the rest I shared with you earlier, making a number of changes very frequently. Change is good, and frequent change is great, particularly where you're putting business logic that drives revenue. Testing complexity, that's going to be something we need to think about, because that's kind of like an awkward subject. Room goes a little silence because we don't like to spend money on those things. Operational monitoring comes back in fashion in a big way. And general observability is very, very important. I'll explain why in just a second. So you're looking at me thinking, well, that's great, so we're just going to flick a switch and we're going to go microservices tomorrow. You know what? It's not going to happen. The reality is that most organizations today have a monolithic application, and they're probably going to continue on with that monolithic application until it hits a kind of brick wall where it doesn't make sense to continue to follow on with the same path. That's where we start looking at the opportunity to break parts of that monolithic application off into smaller bite-sized units. That process is called refactoring. And that's where we start to think about more hybrid environments. And of course, as we get skilled with this, as we get experience with this, as we do the appropriate amount of observation, we can identify candidates to break off and to continue the model of building towards a more distributed microservice model. So what's the implications of that journey, which pragmatically most companies are going to take? Well, number one, as we kind of build the monolith up, we're going to need to think about API augmentations of some of those critical services that we're connecting to. Of course, this is going to be a predominantly waterfall environment. We're going to have a number of release process tools, test tools, identity really established as a perimeter, to safeguard the crown jewels of the business. As we start breaking this off and refactoring, it's interesting that now we'll start to think about needing to mix waterfall and agile technologies together. Yes, we're going to need to do that. Very important consideration. Secondly, we're going to need to think about tool-based automation. We're going to need to rethink testing and the way in which testing is conducted as part of our business, and we're going to need to think about a more agile identity experience as the boundaries of our business change. To finally, thinking about really what I describe as not just being API connected, but being API architected. Yes, over time, ESBs are going to disappear. We're going to have an API architecture which supports the bedrock of our business. We're going to have a largely agile environment, not just in terms of how we develop software, but how the entire enterprise organization functions. Continuous integration, continuous delivery, DevOps will be part and parcel of the way we just operate. Test automation, as we'll share with you, needs to be rethought, and identity needs to become an architecture, something you bake in strategically at the get-go. What are we seeing already? Well, it's early days, but the people that lead with this thing, they're already talking about having, it says 30 times, I think it should say 300 times, 300 times more deployments, 200 plus X faster lead times, using 50% less infrastructure. Now that's going to be important. We all heard about the economic outlook being a little bit, gloomy moving forward. We're not going to be able to spend less on IT, let's be clear, otherwise we're going to have a business. We're going to have to spend money differently, and taking opportunities to reduce 50% of the infrastructure you're using will be an extremely important point. 60 times the change success rate, you can read the numbers on the charts. Clearly already, it's early days, but microservices is clearly proving to be a winning strategy for many companies. And so I see that playing out as agility, efficiency, resilience, and business success predominate. So, 2 minutes on those enabling technologies, because they're important. So number one is the shift from waterfall to agile. We need to embrace agile, we need to embrace agile fast. If we don't, we won't be able to compete. It's as simple as that. I see too many companies today kind of thinking about agile as just a funky new way of developing software. It is, but it needs to be embellished as part of the way enterprises function, decisions get made, organizations collaborate. It's critical. And CA is playing a major role in the proliferation and the adoption of agile technologies. We'll talk more about that in just a second, but it's a major disruptor and, if you will, an enabler for taking this journey. But as I said earlier, bimodal realities will prevail. That means as we move off our monolith and we refactor and we become hybrid on the journey to microservices, we need to think about marrying agile and waterfall environments together. We talked about platform as a service, one of the fastest growing areas of the business, bar none, because right now it just removes all the pain of managing infrastructure out to someone else. Many private PaaS companies are already doing very, very well with this, but I even see instances of PaaS technology being now adopted in enterprise instances, people bringing this in-house to run private cloud infrastructure. It just makes perfect sense. You can spend your precious resources developing apps and not worrying about configuring infrastructure, and resources are a premium. In fact, for many companies, they're difficult to get hold of, and so this is just pure pragmatism, pure reality, pure common sense. Containerization just simply exacerbates the situation. This simply says that a developer developing his code on a laptop can move it from his version of Linux into some cloud-based PaaS. You may be using a different iteration of Linux, but it doesn't matter. The container doesn't care. The container just enables that ease of portability, zero configuration time. And guess what? This is more efficient for the PaaS service providers. This uses up about 25% less than what they're currently using with their typical virtualization infrastructure based on VMs. It cuts provisioning time down from, 15 minutes to 5 seconds. I mean, again, a business no-brainer from my perspective. So a big enabler for the way forward. And finally, we talked about SDN. This thing's coming like a steam train. All the telcos are going to deploy it. I'm now beginning to see enterprises think about deploying enterprise instances of software-defined everything, just simply because it enables us to deliver very cost-effective, very rich application quality over commoditized infrastructure. Again, if it's a little bit of a troubling outlook from a financial perspective, being able to reduce your infrastructure cost, get rid of all those expensive routers that just cost an arm and a leg, and run this on low-grade commoditized infrastructure makes pragmatic common sense for every company. So these are big drivers which I think will fuel and drive the microservices DevOps boom. But hey, a minute on people. We can't just go and buy this as a technology, no product. I wish we could. We're at CA. We're in this business, as Ken mentioned. We sell software. If it was just simply a case of coming to us and having everything addressed, that would be fantastic. But there's a responsibility for every organization to look at the people side, create collaborative environments, have a culture of empathy, have a culture and an ability to just interact and collaborate at speed, make agile decisions in the interests of moving fast for the speed of the business. Enough said. So, we talked about agile, we talked about the ability of understanding how to get value into our business and into the hands of our customers quickly. To build smaller things quickly, more iteratively is good. Agile enables us to do that. But understand that it's very difficult to do in this. You've got some management tools that support your ability to do that. At CA, we made an acquisition about a year and a bit ago, a company called Raleigh, one of the leaders in Agile Lifecycle Management. What Raleigh helps customers do is simply help us manage and build this at speed, automate the process, and enable us to do this not just the software development level, but help an organization to become more agile. At the same time, I talked to you about the reality of hybrid environments with waterfall. They don't go away. Your core monolithic apps are going to be very waterfall based. We're going to need to have CA PPM. CA PPM helps you manage a waterfall environment. and now we can manage both environments in a kind of integrated way, which is good. And the other thing is that you also need to make sure that from a portfolio level, you can make decisions about having the right resources on the right project, on the right application at the right time, in alignment with the corporate strategy and your ability to drive what's important for your business. So, managing at a portfolio level, managing at a business level, and providing execution ability is fundamental. I heard one person say to me, Stephen, I've implemented Agile, and you know what? I find that generally speaking, any advantage I had in speed, I lost because my organization can't make decisions fast enough. I can't get resources to be available to help me on my project. I can't get business to approve it because it's not in alignment with the corporate strategy. They don't have the appropriate visibility. We solve that problem. Crucial problem to solve. When we get into the build side, we're into the guts of the factory now. So we've got Agile, we've got development teams developing funky apps, and we've got an ability to now do them smaller and faster and quicker. So what becomes important now is to be able to develop in a parallel context, okay? The challenge with developing in a parallel context is the things that need to be available to you to develop against aren't always available. Number one. Secondly, they may not even exist. So what's important is the ability to virtualize that. Not virtualize as in a VMware type of virtualization, I mean a service virtualization. Create a fake environment that you can build applications against so that you can build from the beginning with the end in mind. And using API technology to help you speed up and do that quickly. Our API technology enables us to expose applications to developers quickly in a secure way. It also helps us to think about building APIs more rapidly. If APIs are going to become the new digital platform for my business, it makes sense to be able to build and test these at speed. These things become very, very important. CA also has a capability around building a mobile back-end development service. So now, again, as we build those mobile apps, and we want to mimic the ability of components we need to prove the success of those apps, you need a mobile back-end service development capability. CA now has brought that to market, and we launched this at CA World just recently. So our API capability, very comprehensive and very unique in the market. Testing, it just simply says if I'm going to develop earlier in the cycle, and if I'm going to develop against components which aren't ordinarily available to me, then I'm going to need to test with production-like data that is suitably available to test as early as I possibly can in the life cycle. And secondly, create that test data against virtualized components as is made available through our service virtualization capability. So this unique capability of API, service virtualization, and test data management gives CA an unparalleled capability to build quality applications at speed, iteratively, with really rich quality. So we built the apps, and now what we need to do is eradicate the other big problem in the tool chain, which is that everybody has 101 different tools through the release cycle, too problematic, too disaggregated, limited workflow, poor decision making often supports the cycle, and frankly we just can't build and release apps fast enough. Using CA's release automation, we're able to basically build this into a tightly automated workflow. And customers today getting benefits like being able to speed this up by a factor of, say, 95% over what it previously took them to release. So, but also working to give us that continuous feedback so that we can make changes iteratively in the release process. When we think about operations, we can look no further than CA's application performance management and infrastructure management. When we go into microservices-based world that I talked about earlier, it's important to understand that you can't even begin to take this on unless you have huge observability. Unless you're able to manage through that API architecture that is now supporting the simple way in which your business is connected, managing over hybrid, on-premise, cloud-based environments, and providing a true end-to-end experience, not just operationally, but feeding back proactively into development. CA's product portfolio in the EM space essentially models that, baselines it, and analyzes it on a speed and scale that none of our competitors do. And we're simply able to deliver an end-to-end performance that's predictive, baseline correlated, and in short, with bringing the business closer to the customers, it makes dev ops aware and it makes ops dev aware. I think we're probably the only company that can truly deliver this capability, and it's something that I'm personally very excited about. That then enables us to make fast changes, fast fixes, as we also fine-tune the relevance of the applications we're building. So again, supports the Agile process, brings that great iteration into the business. A quick visual on this one, but just to let you know that, again, I believe we're the only company today that does this truly end-to-end through an API architecture across physical, virtual systems, cloud, on-premise, hybrid. We don't care. We're agnostic, and we deliver this experience end-to-end. When we talk about APIs, today you might know of us for our API gateway and our portal capabilities, but essentially it's about consumer to business, business to business, humans to apps, and machine to machine. Integrate everything, connect through existing legacy ESB and SOA architectures on that sort of refactoring journey that we spoke about earlier, making sure that we secure the enterprise in the process, whilst accelerating the capabilities around mobile and IoT development, and unlocking the value of the data for those new mobile applications that are now the new frontier of our business. But as importantly, please understand that API technology supports the whole ability to move to a microservices architecture. In short, this becomes the new middleware layer for how microservices are going to get built, constructed, and deployed. The foundation of digital transformation, as I like to talk about. Vic will no doubt embellish this to a level of great comprehension for you. I just simply want to make a couple of comments about security. Security for us is something which has become not just a constrainer in the business, because in days gone by and in days of old, constraining was a good thing because we needed to lock down and secure our business. We still need to secure our business, don't get me wrong, but we need to do it in a very enabled way, because the frontiers of our business are expanding. In a microservices world, the number of privileged users, for example, is going to blossom by about 200-fold. Well, if all of those people have backdoors into your systems and manage to hijack an identity, they can bring your business down in 5 minutes. So everything that you've done in terms of changing and driving your business can be lost because you're just simply not paying attention to the things that really matter. At the same time, identity needs to be something the business can relate to, not just the CISO. And so making our tools more available, more usable to the business, and more accountable to the business is important in an increasingly agile, hybrid, adaptable organizations as we build moving forward. And I just wanted to stress the point on the privileged access management side, because I'm super excited about this part of our capability. I think we're very unique in what we can do here. And I challenge any company to go out there and find a solution which really helps us to lock down those privileged users and the access they have in a microservices world across all of those different environments in a way which is simple to administer, the business can bet upon it, and we can have the appropriate amount of control and governance to ensure that we keep our business real. Super exciting stuff. Vic will cover that in a bit more detail. And with that, I'd like to bring it to an end. As I say, you're going to hear more about the product portfolio as we get into the later part of the day. But just take away from my presentation, just kind of remember the 3 pillars. We have agile management, which is really helping companies transform, become more agile companies, but taking that transition as we move through different hybrid environments. Thinking about project and portfolio management more strategically, as well as embracing it into an increasingly agile world. Security is about enabling security across the length and breadth of our identity and access-centric portfolio. The APT and the other stuff out there is all important in the application economy, but as Vic always reminds me, if people get access to your infrastructure and hijack your identity, you don't have a business. Very, very important. And finally, DevOps. We talked about it at length. Continuous delivery, application performance management service, virtualization, the whole API management portfolio, etc. Critical to the transformation of any business to a thriving software-based business and an innovation factory. That's it from me. I'll hand over now to somebody who I have great pleasure in inviting to the stage. I've known him for a while now. Ramesh,